Hi, I'm Sean Lean. I'm the President of the Legislative Council in the Victorian Parliament, and I'm here to give an update of this week's parliamentary sitting. This week, there was two condolence motions for three different ex-members of this parliament. There was one for the Honourable Brian Dixon, who was a member for St Kilda from 1964 to 1982, and he's also served as a minister in a number of portfolios. There was also a special condolence motion passed for Grace Baylor and Joan Coxick. They were the first two women elected to the Legislative Council, so there was a special motion to pay tribute. We passed four pieces of legislation this week. First one we debated was the Transport Legislation Amendment, Vehicle Sharing Scheme, Safety and Standards Bill, and that amends various acts in relation to vehicle sharing schemes and offences involving electric scooters. Another bill that was passed was the Roads and Ports Legislation Amendment, Road Safety and Other Matters Bill 2025, and that delivers ranges of legislation amendments to improve safety, achieve operational administration efficiencies, and improve the effectiveness of our transport laws. Another piece of legislation that was debated and passed was the Workplace Injury Rehabilitation Compensation Bill 2025. That also makes amendments to several acts to improve return to work outcomes, introduce new compensation entitlements, and improve support for family members after an unfortunate work-related death. Last piece of legislation that was debated this week in the chamber was the Corrections Legislation Amendment Bill, which once again amends several acts around priority issues affecting the correction system and post-sentence scheme. Other than legislation, there was a number of topics debated in the Legislative Council this week, which involved a range of topics, including public service review. There was an Ombudsman referral. There was a select committee formed to look into early child education, also workplace drug testing, and there was a petition that was debated around the creation of new national parks in Victoria's West. As in every Parliament sitting, it's very busy outside the chambers, and I'll touch on a couple of great events that happened throughout the week. One of the great events I'd like to talk about this week, which was held in Parliament, was an exhibition in Queen's Hall. This exhibition was called Mindscapes, and it was the DAX Centre in Sane, Australia, putting on an exhibition of 30 pieces of artwork, which are showcased from the actual Cunningham DAX collection. And all these pieces of artwork were created by artists that have lived experience of mental illness or psychological trauma, and some of the pieces of artwork date back to the 1940s. The DAX Centre does a great job in keeping these pieces of artwork within the public view, and it was fantastic to have a number of opportunities to have a conversation with them about the good work that they do. Another really interesting event held this week in Parliament was the World Skills winners. So the Minister for Skills and TAFE hosted an event to celebrate the success of Victoria's World Skills Australian gold medalists and their families. The World Skills Australia National Championships was 600 people around Australia that were talented apprentices, trainees and skilled professionals competing in what is the biggest skills competition across a number of categories. So it was great for the Minister to have those gold medalists from Victoria in the Parliament so they can be acknowledged by all the members of Parliament. There's a number of pieces of legislation that will be coming across from the Assembly this sitting week that will be debated, if not next sitting week in the Legislative Chamber, but in coming weeks. They include the Local Jobs First Amendment Bill, Crimes Amendment Bill, and a National Electricity Victoria Amendment, VicGrid Stage 2 Reform Bill. And I will give you an update of how they proceeded in my next update to you after the next sitting week.